Week 17 of the fantasy football season with the championship here for fantasy owners. Here's running back starts at every matchup this week. The first of three Christmas games, Dallas Cowboys at the Washington Commanders. Javonte Williams, it's been a great season for him in his first year with the Dallas Cowboys, and it looks like he's been 100% healthy and finally fully recovered from that ACL injury. So this week in a good matchup at the Commanders, he's an easy start. Chris Rodriguez, he's been the starting running back for this Commander team over the last month of the season, and he's playing pretty good football. And this week it is a good matchup versus a Cowboy defense that isn't any good. But this week, to me, Chris Rodriguez, just where he's been a touchdown dependent back and also running back that don't catch the football out of the backfield. He's a fringe option. And Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, same type of thing with him where he's touchdown dependent and he don't catch anything out of the backfield. And also a running back that don't get as many touches as Rodriguez. He's a sit. And so Rodriguez a fringe option and Krosky-Merritt a sit this week. Detroit Lions at Minnesota Vikings. Jahmyr Gibbs a start. Last couple weeks numbers have dropped off a little bit for Jahmyr Gibbs. Well, we haven't seen that big ball game out of him going back weeks ago now versus the Dallas Cowboys in Week 14 was the last time he had a big game as Jahmyr Gibbs. So this week, decent matchup with the Minnesota Vikings. Their defense is nothing special. I thought Tyrone Tracy last week ran good versus defense. We know Gibbs could do a little bit of everything out of the backfield, catching the football, lining up as a receiver, sees a start. David Montgomery a sit. This season, he's taken a back seat where Gibbs has been the number one all season long. And Montgomery changed the pace back and pretty much touchdown dependent back. So this week at the Vikings, even though it's a good matchup, he's a sit. Aaron Jones a start. Last week he gutted it out was Aaron Jones, where he left the game for a little bit with an ankle injury, and he returned and he played decent in that ball game was Aaron Jones. And also as well, we saw Jordan Mason went down early in that one. He didn't return. So I think Jones, regardless, he'll be the start this week. And if Jordan Mason does play in this game, we haven't seen much from him where he'll get touches here and there, but as well, if he's not scoring a touchdown, he's not a factor. He's a sit. Denver Broncos at the Kansas City Chiefs. R.J. Harvey a start. Running back that could do it all out of the backfield for Sean Payton and this Denver Bronco team. This Chief defense, it just looks like last week they mailed it in and they knew the season was over, obviously. They were out going into last week's game at Tennessee. And also as well with Mahomes out, they knew they had no chance. So R.J. Harvey this week a start. Now to the Chiefs, Kareem Hunt, Isaiah Pacheco is sits. This offense, they're not going to move the ball much, obviously. Down to the third string quarterback is this Kansas City Chief team. And last week, both these running backs didn't do much. And this week in a tough matchup versus one of the better defenses in the league, even though the Jaguars took it to the Broncos last week, both these running backs are sits. Houston Texans at the Los Angeles Chargers. Woody Marks, he missed last week's game. We'll see if he returns this week is Woody Marks. And if he does, he's a start. This is a decent matchup versus the Los Angeles Chargers where their run defense is a middle-of-the-pack defense. And Woody Marks, it's been a solid rookie season for him. But obviously, he's a smaller back and he's been banged up more times than not this season here. And if he's out, Jawad Jordan, he'll be the man in the backfield for this Houston Texan team. Last week, I thought he did a decent job in the victory. Was Jordan versus the Vegas Raiders, and he would be a start this week at the Chargers where he could catch the football out of the backfield. He could run in between the tackles even though he's a smaller back as well. But also he was ahead of Nick Chubb, who was healthy and played in that ball game a little bit last week where Nick Chubb is a sit. Nick Chubb hasn't done much this season. Unfortunately, I think his better days are behind him with too many devastating knee injuries he's had over his career. So this week Chubb will be a sit. Amari Hampton, he's the guy over there now once again in Los Angeles. It was a 50-50 split, but Vidal, he got banged up with a neck injury, left the game, even though he's day-to-day right now is Vidal. But either way, I think Hampton now, he's got his legs under him. He's been back for 3 weeks for this Charger team. And this week, even in a tougher matchup versus the Texans, he's a start where we saw Ashton Jinty go out there last week and have a big game versus one of the better defenses in the league. And Kamini Vidal, like I said, he's a sit in this one. If he plays, he's taking more of a backseat. He's playing some special teams as a returner as well for this Los Angeles Charger team. This week, even if he's back in a smaller role versus Texans, he's a sit. Baltimore Ravens at the Green Bay Packers. Derrick Henry a start. Last week, a monster game. It was for Henry, and they just didn't play him. Every other series, it looked like he was in there getting touches, where Keaton Mitchell was getting some touches at times. So they've thrown the football a lot. So Derrick Henry in pivotal parts of that ball game last week, especially where they were looking to close it out. They were up 24-21. He wasn't on the field, so that was a little puzzling. But this week, Derrick Henry has started Green Bay. Josh Jacobs, last week, he wasn't 100% with the knee injury, but he gutted it out. And then the second half, Emmanuel Wilson, he was catching fire and they stayed with the hot hand head coach Matt LaFleur instead. But Josh Jacobs, we know he's been one of the better running backs in fantasy football this season. Baltimore's defense is middle of the pack to a poor defense, and Jacobs is starting. Emmanuel Wilson, let's say he was the full-time starting running back, then I would say put him in your lineup. But like I said, this season he's barely seen the field consistently. He'll get touches here and there, Wilson, but last week was the only time with Jacobs healthy he actually went out there and had double-digit touches. Is Emmanuel Wilson in a close contested ball game. So this week he's a sit. Arizona Cardinals at the Cincinnati Bengals. Michael Carter to start. He's pretty much the only healthy running back in this backfield, where we've seen Connor, Trey Benson, Bam Knight all go down. And Carter last week, touches were limited, but he had about 6 yards per carry. So this week in a good matchup at the Bengals, he's a start. We can catch the football out of the backfield as well. Amari DiMercato was sit. He was a change of pace back last week, but DiMercato's been in the doghouse going back to early in the season, where he had a walk-in touchdown and he dropped the ball at the goal line, and then it went into the end zone for a touchback. So, like I said, his value and touches haven't been there. He's a sit. Chase Brown to start each and every week. Last week, a monster game it was for Chase Brown at the Miami Dolphins, where he had 3 total touchdowns. And this week, versus the Arizona Cardinals, I expect them to have a big game. Pittsburgh Steelers at the Cleveland Browns. Jalen Warren, Kenneth Gainwell, their starts. Warren last week, 2 monster runs in that ball game. And Jalen Warren, he's a running back that could do it all. I know out of the backfield, Kenneth Gainwell's a better pass catcher, and they line him up at receiver more. Where this game, I think both these guys are going to get more catches, with obviously DK Metcalf suspended, and they're down to veterans like Adam Thielen, MVS, and Calvin Austin, obviously the young wide receiver. So this week, I think both these guys, they're going to do what they've been doing over the last couple of weeks, helping this offense, and both are going to catch more passes in this one as well with DK Metcalf out. And we saw Gainwell last week with that crazy catch. Somehow he caught it, got up untouched, and ran it into the end zone. So this week of the Brown defense that's been struggling of late, they're easy starts. Raheem Sanders, Dylan Sampson, they're both sits. Sanders, he came in for Quentin Junkins after he got that devastating leg injury, dislocating the ankle, breaking the fibula, and we don't know if he'll be ready for the start of the season, but either way, this week, both these running backs I can't trust. Sampson missed last week's ball game. I'm sure he'll be the change of pace back and a guy catching the football out of the backfield on passing downs. But in terms of having value this week, they're both sits. New Orleans Saints at the Tennessee Titans. Audric Estime is sit. Last week it was Taysom Hill in that backfield for this New Orleans Saints team, taking a majority of the touches, where Audric Estime would just change of pace back, and he had a few catches out of the backfield. But even this week in a good matchup at the Titans, I don't trust Estime to do much. He's a sit. Tony Pollard to start. Last 3 weeks, he's turned this season around as Tony Pollard, and he's getting good yards per carry. He's looking more explosive once again, is Tony Pollard. And this offense has improved a little bit over the last few weeks, and this week in a matchup versus a mediocre Saint defense, he's a start. Tajay Spears a fringe option. It was the best game easily of the year for Tajay Spears, but also he's a running back that he's got to catch a lot of passes or at least break a big one on a screen or something to have a day. So this week, even after coming off a big game, in a game that could be close where Saints could get off to an early start, we know Spears is the third down passing downs back. He's a fringe option this week. Jacksonville Jaguars at the Indianapolis Colts. 2 great running backs going at it this week in division matchup. Travis Etienne having a great season, a big part of why this Jacksonville Jaguar team 11-4 on the season. And this week at an Indianapolis Colts team that just got torn up on the ground by Christian McCaffrey. Etienne an easy start, and like you said, he's putting up huge numbers this season, and he's demoted to this offense. And Jonathan Taylor a start last week, a little bit better it was for Jonathan Taylor. And obviously with Phillip Rivers in there, they don't want him throwing the football 45, 50 times per game. So this week versus division rival, the Jaguars, a team he's had a good track record against throughout his career, is Jonathan Taylor. After coming off of 2 okay ball games, he's a start this week. Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Miami Dolphins. Bucky Irvin a start. He's been back over the last few weeks as Bucky Irvin, and it's been a mixed bag of results. And Rashad White and Sean Tucker have came in at times in this backfield. But Bucky Irvin, it's a good matchup. He's the number 1 back. He's going to get a majority of the touches. And this week, at a bad Dolphin defense, he's a start. Rashad White, Sean Tucker, it's pretty much these guys either need a big run in a game or find in the end zone to have any fantasy value. And Rashad White, we know, is more of a third down, passing down, running back out of the backfield. And Sean Tucker's a big physical back. And actually, he has taken some goal line work from Bucky Irvin over the last few weeks since Bucky's been back in the lineup. But this week, even in a good matchup at the Dolphins, these guys in a championship situation are tough to trust. Their sits Devon Achane, one of the best running backs in all football this season. Last week, another good game. He cracked the 48-yard touchdown. Early in that one was Achane. And then second half, he didn't do much. But this week versus Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he's a start each and every week. Like I said, one of the best backs in fantasy. New England Patriots at the New York Jets. Trevion Henderson hit his head on the turf. He didn't come back, obviously. He went out in that ball game early in the second half was Henderson. And we'll see if he's back, even though I think they're going to take it easy with Henderson. So if he's out, Stevenson's going to get a full workload. And we saw Stevenson in the second half, especially in the fourth quarter, with a big run in that ball game at the Baltimore Ravens. So this week in a great matchup with the Jets, if Henderson's back, he's a start. And even Stevenson will be a start with Henderson back in the lineup this week, where it's a great matchup versus a bad defense. Breece Hall will start. I know Breece Hall, his numbers have been down over the last few weeks. I know once again the rookie Cook is in there, quarterback for this New York Jet team. But Breece Hall, he's a running back that it just takes him sometimes a couple runs to get going and have a good game. But let's be honest, there's not much going on in this New York Jet offense. Adonai Mitchell, John Mechie, they're two wide receivers. Mason Taylor, he's missed a few games over the last few weeks. I still think Breece Hall, on volume alone, even if they get blown out in this game, he'll get a couple dump-offs and make some plays. He's a start, even though the ceiling isn't high. Seattle Seahawks at the Carolina Panthers. Kenneth Walker started last week, easily the best game of the season. Better late than never it was for Walker in the comeback victory versus the Los Angeles Rams. And Walker, we know he's got home run potential and a big-time running back potential. But this season, just been more of the defense and obviously the Jackson Smith and the Jigba show for the Seattle Seahawks team. So this week at the Carolina Panthers, Kenneth Walker, I will put him in the lineup, and Zach Charbonnet, a fringe option, where he's been a touchdown-dependent running back all season long. But we know he's the physical back on the short yardage in between the tackles and at the goal line. And this week in a matchup at the Panthers, this could be a game a little bit more in the trenches than passing the football for both teams. But he's a fringe option. Maybe Rico Dotto will start. Last week it was a down game for Rico Dotto. It was more passing game. And Tator McMillan leading the way to help this Panther team beat Buccaneer team, and also their defense playing well. But Rico Dotto, to me, is the better running back between him and Chuba Hubbard. More physical in between the tackles, catch the football out of the backfield a little bit. And a guy at the goal line who's physical and can get in the end zone. Chuba Hubbard is sit. He's had a couple decent games this season, but like I said, Rico Dotto's taking his job this year for Chuba Hubbard. And also, if he's not scoring a touchdown, he really hasn't had fantasy value. So Chuba Hubbard is a sit. New York Giants at the Vegas Raiders. Tyrone Tracy, he's taken back over this backfield once again over the last few weeks, where Singletary was eating into that workload, and it pretty much was a 55-45 split in Tracy's favor. But the last 2 weeks, Tracy's been running the football more. He looks like the better back, like I said, could catch the football out of the backfield more. Elusiveness and athleticism and a quicker running back. So this week at the Raiders, a bad defense, he's a start, and Singletary a sit. Like I said, we haven't seen much out of Singletary of late in this backfield for this New York Giant team. So like I said, he had a couple good games here and there, but even in a great matchup, he's a sit. Ashton Jeanty a start. Last week, arguably in the toughest matchup of his career on paper, going into Houston, he went out there and had a big game, Ashton Jeanty, including catching a 60-yard wheel route down the sidelines for a touchdown and breaking some tackles on that as well. So this week, Ashton Jeanty, good matchup back home with the Raiders. He's a start. Philadelphia Eagles at the Bills, a big game. Saquon Barkley a start. Last couple weeks, he's starting to get it going, and last week he had a big game, over 130 yards, and found the end of the zone is Saquon Barkley. So this Buffalo Bill run defense isn't all that great, and this could be a high-scoring game, so he's an easy start. And James Cook, one of the best running backs in all football this season here, and last week put on another clinic in that one at the Cleveland Browns. And this week, even versus a tough Eagle defense, he's still a must-start running back. Bears at the San Francisco 49ers. DeAndre Swift, he's been playing good football of late for the Chicago Bear team. And this week, I think they could get him on the ground a little bit. This offense is playing well. The Bears, one of the better teams in the league this season. After last year, one of the worst teams in the league, and now you get a new head coach, a new offensive system, and everything has changed for this Bear team. So Swift, he can run in between the tackles, catch the football out of the backfield, and it should be a better weather game, obviously, in San Francisco. He's a start. And Kyle Monungai, definitely a running back that's had a good, solid rookie season and fits this offense for the future for the Chicago Bear team, but he's still taking a backseat to DeAndre Swift in touches. And this week in a championship game, I wouldn't trust him. He's a sit-in. Christian McCaffrey, I've said it all season long, as as he's healthy, he's going to be one of the best running backs in fantasy football. And that's exactly been the case with CMC. He could do it all in between the tackles, catch the football out of the backfield, the best receiving back in all pro football, in my opinion. And this week in a good matchup versus the Chicago Bears, he's a start. Final game of the week, Los Angeles Rams at the Falcons. Kyren Williams, Blake Horn, both starts for me. 50-50 split pretty much with these two running backs. And this week it's a good matchup indoors, fast track at the Atlanta Falcons, where their defense for the most part this season has had trouble stopping the run. So Kyren, he's getting his points, he's getting his touchdowns. And Blake Corum, he's another running back as well. He could do a little bit of everything, and he's getting a decent amount of touches and goal line touches as well. So this week they both starts, and Bijan Robinson is start each and every week. Arguably, he's the number one pick coming off the board in fantasy drafts next season, and he's had 4 games over 150 yards from scrimmage. So last week after he put on a clinic at Arizona, this week definitely a tougher matchup versus the Rams, but he's a matchup proof and stud back, an easy start. And Tyler Algier, nothing more than a change of pace back, and sometimes he vultures goal line touchdowns from Bijan Robinson, but he's a sit this week. So that's running back start sit every matchup for week 17 of the fantasy football season.